Hello everybody, my name is Teresa and I want to welcome you to this new RankiaPro interview. And today we have the pleasure to talk with Andrea Di Camillo, founder and managing partner of P101, about one of the main topics this year, venture capital. So hi Andrea, how are you?
Hi, Teresa. Thank you for having me here. Very good. Very good.
It
Ready
is
to
a
kick
pleasure.
and rock.
It is a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for being here with us. So let's start this interview since we have a lot of interesting topics to go through. And so the first thing that our watchers would like to know is what role does venture capital play in the investment sectors in Italy? And how is the venture capital industry positioned in Italy compared to other countries in Europe?
It's good, very well positioned. So since the story of venture capital in Italy is pretty recent, basically everything started back 10 years ago, and we started basically from scratch. But now we can say that it is an industry which was not just like 4 or 5 years ago. Now is in the billion per year. So it's definitely something that we can track down and see what it will bring on the market. Obviously, is underweighted within other asset classes and compared to other asset classes because of its recency. So we think that we are well positioned to play a role, and not just in Italy, but at a European and at an international scale.
I see. And now that we have this panoramic view of venture capital in Italy and in Europe, we would like to know what do you think are the main advantages for institutional investors in choosing to invest in venture capital funds rather than directly in startups?
This is an interesting one because let's say most of the time, specifically in Italy, because again, we didn't have a structured venture capital industry, many private and corporate investors decided to go by their own and directly investing in startups, which is something of a I would say that is not understood very well many times that making venture capital investments is a profession and is a structural profession. It's not something that we do on an occasional basis. So the first thing is the role as a team that you can play in choosing an investment, but then more and more managing an investment through a very long cycle because venture capital is a very long-term asset class, and this is something that you have to support, play with, deal with, and bring from one phase through many different phases. And these imply that you have a full team of professionals doing this. The second thing is more of a financial point of view, just because managing a portfolio means, on behalf of investors, means to make de-risking and portfolio management. So not only you are trying to extract the greatest value from each investment, but you are making it at a portfolio level, which means that you have a portfolio strategy allocation, which allows you, and so our investors as well, to have a more large and broad view on a specific vintage, sector, industry, and so forth and so on. And the third thing is that depending on the type of investor, if it is a pure financial investor, obviously you're trying to bring at the table the return, which is the end of the game of our profession. But if you are more of a corporate investor or even an entrepreneur, a private one with an entrepreneurial background, you can give visibility on a broader range of opportunities, which is one of the implied values of venture capital that is still not very understood. I think also at the European level, not just at the Italian level. So I think that these three aspects make the difference in respect of going directly through single investment. Then I would add a latest thing that we have been offering to our investors to co-invest alongside with us, which is probably the most effective combination. So you invest in a fund, you de-risk, you have a broad visibility, and then when it is also useful for us, you can make a direct investment that you will know will be somehow looked after by our own team.
Okay, thank you very much for these very interesting insights, Andrea. Let's talk about Pitch and Tuno specifically now. Which characteristics must a startup have for you to consider investing in it and include it in your portfolio?
I would say the main one is how well we get along with the management team. So this is going to be a wedding and a long-term one. So as you probably can imagine, weddings are difficult, and so you need to find someone that you are ready to live together for a long period of time and through joys, but also through many difficult cycles. And so the chemistry that we can have with the management team and with an entrepreneurial team is fundamental in our choice. Then obviously there are literally hundreds of different other aspects that we have to evaluate the specific uh, technological wave that we are seeing in a specific time, and it depends also on the life cycle of our fund at the time of the investment. So all these elements play together in taking the decision. And by the way, something that I always like to remind is that we have cycles, as I just said, and maybe we are in a moment where we are just starting a new fund and making several investments, and maybe we don't just have the bandwidth to consider further. So we're a small company in the end, and sometimes these things from outside, from the entrepreneur's point of view, and sometimes even from the investor's point of view, is not well understood. And so I always try to remark it.
Mhm. Thank you very much, Andrea. And in an uncertain macroeconomic context, such as the present, how do you adapt your capital deployment strategy?
As said before, we are a long-term investor, so macroeconomics environment affects us for fundraising, that for sure. So we have been, I hope we deserve it, but we have also been, uh, let's say, lucky to get to this new fund that we will probably discuss later on. But being a long-term investor, we don't look to what is happening just right now. We're trying to imagine and figure out what will happen in 5, 6, 7 years. So let's say that in this sense, also from a financial point of view, venture capital is anti-cyclical investment, which makes it more interesting exactly in these macroeconomical hard landscapes.
Mhm. Very interesting. And let me ask you, how do you measure the success of an investment internally? Do you have any particular indicator beyond the classic internal rate of return?
Definitely. I think that when we see sustainable, financially sustainable businesses that went from a startup phase or from a money losing or cash burn phase to a viable, sustainable financial business, that makes us very satisfied in terms of the result. And as you said, despite the IRR, IRR is the final result as a venture capital firm, but it's not the only result as a economical player on the ecosystem. So contributing with our capital and with our investors' capital to building relevant and financially sustainable companies is probably the main goal, and the IRR will be a consequence of this.
So thank you, Andrea. It was very clear. We're also interested in understanding what is your approach towards startups that are struggling or going through a pivot. So what can you tell us about it?
It depends very much from the specific situation. So if it is struggling for market conditions, for management, um, let's say mistakes, or for different or unforeseen competition conditions, then probably we will let it go, which is part of our job. So we are not a 100% uh, right on every investment. And this is the reason why it's called venture capital and not just capital. Then, most of the time, when one of those elements that I've been mentioning is happening, then it's definitely our role to contribute to the company to try to fix the single problem. So when problems are too many and we have a number of companies to work on, we have to decide who we cannot support anymore, which is a positive selection, I would say. Otherwise, our role, and specifically in P101 role, we definitely try to support operationally our portfolio companies, and I think that that is part of the journey, and that is, let's say, the real value add that we can bring not just to the single companies, but to our portfolio, to the ecosystem as well.
Mhm. I see. This was one interesting answer, one interesting insight, since many investors are, very interested in it. Another very current topic that many investors actually investigate before investing is linked to the ESG factors. So we would like to ask you about the role of these ESG factors. What the role of these ESG factors play in the world of venture capital.
Venture capital is ESG by design, because obviously we have to invest in technologies, companies, and verticals that have to be aligned what we do expect, as I said, in the medium long term. And in the medium long term, we all know that ESG, everything that is sustainability and socially uh, wise and so forth and so on, is something that we cannot go back. And so, again, by design, we do have invest in businesses that will embrace those principles. And then, furthermore, we are even formally ESG, our funds are ESG compatible. So I would say that that's in our DNA and in our nature.
So now that we have like a general view on venture capital, I have to ask you, what are your expectations for this sector, for this market in this year, in 2025?
I think obviously we are always positive, which is one of the characteristics that you must have doing this job. And 2025, so is not going to be different from any other previous year. What I think that would be positive, let's say, for new also reasons, such as Europe. I'm expecting that we'll start playing a bolder move on sustaining and fueling new entrepreneurship, new technology at a different scale in respect of what has been done in the recent past. So I think that on top of the need of the market of creating new companies, um, new jobs, and new skills with new jobs, I think that Europe itself will be a big propeller for not just 2025, but even for the years to come. And not could be, must be, because otherwise Europe will be struggling in this complicated and complex economic environment.
Mhm. Well, we at RankiaPro will be watching very closely the evolution of venture capital this year. Andrea, I don't want to finish this interview without pointing out that Pitch and Tuno just announced the final closing of Programma 103 at 250 million euros. So, what can you tell us about it? And also, are there any new vehicles in the pipeline now?
Yes, as I said, we are super proud of this achievement. We think that hopefully we deserve, but it's also a very good signal for the industry because, as we mentioned before, uh, we never had such sizable funds investing and focusing on our own market. So proud of ourselves, but also very happy because this will mean having a new level in the game for the next few years. And regarding what will come, hopefully soon, is we went from, let's say, one team, one fund to a six funds situation. More than 80 companies invested so far, hundred of different uh, investments on our portfolio over the years. So now we can consider that we are at the verge of more of a platform of solutions for venture capital and so for the market than just one single active fund. So we'll soon announce a new structured fund for the seed capital that obviously we are not pursuing with Programma 103 because of its size, where we think seed will be and is and has always been a tremendous opportunity, and where probably we will strengthen pretty soon. I don't know if within this year or in 2026, our fund of funds strategy. That is something that we have been keeping below the line, but has been pretty active with some our own balance sheet, and we've been investing in emerging, and not just emerging, international seed funds that can bring us visibility on new geographies and that can see us as potential co-investors. And I see that the combination of these three things, so the existing and these latest two ones, will be a further opportunity for our investors, but furthermore for new entrepreneurs or existing entrepreneurs that could find, let's say, always an answer and so a solution talking to P101. So we're pretty much amazed of what we could do in the next few years, but let's keep us posted and see what will come.
Thank you very much, Andrea. So this was actually our final question. And once again, thank you very much for finding the time to be with us today. We know you're very busy, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you to the team, and hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you, Andrea, and thanks to all of the investors watching. As usual, don't forget to share this interview on social media and follow us on LinkedIn. See you next time. Goodbye.